Awesome. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Today, I have the profound honor and privilege to be talking my friend Chelsea of the YouTube channel Run Carnivore Run. She's actually a personal friend of mine. Our kids go to school together. And so I wanted to do this video because I don't do enough health related coverage, and health is a central it's a central focus in my life constantly. It's something I'm always thinking about. And when I meet somebody who's as passionate about health as I am, I have no choice but to geek out with them. So Chelsea, welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to have you here today and to talk all things carnivore diet.
Hey Dale, thank you so much for having me today. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
excited to geek out with you.
Yes, let's do it.
Yes.
So, why don't you give us a little bit of your history and how you came to adopt the carnivore diet as your sort of core strategy for well-being?
Right. Well, so the name of my channel is Run Carnivore Run because that's my primary focus. I will say that I did not start out as a carnivore. I'm a person who has struggled with weight issues my entire life. I was a serial yo-yo dieter for my life. I developed various eating disorders and poor habits, just the whole nine yards. And in February 2022, when I decided to change my life and not just my external self, but my internal self, I embarked on many different diets. I started with just giving up dessert as my first base, and then I moved into a ketogenic diet for several months, and then I adopted the carnivore lifestyle, and that lifestyle has truly saved my life. It was far beyond just losing weight, and I did lose weight. I've lost 90 pounds since I began my journey.
Wow.
50 pounds of that was from carnivore itself. But it wasn't just when you start on the carnivore diet, oftentimes, and there are many, many reasons people adopt the carnivore lifestyle. Mine was weight loss, but you start with weight loss and the way that you feel and the improvements on your health, it totally changes the focus. I cannot tell you the health benefits that I've experienced, how amazing I feel on this diet. And while it may not be for everyone, I definitely want to get the word out there. And it gets a lot of bad rap. I really do. I think people, the way that the health system works, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the diet. And I want to sort of tell you that sure, there are risks to any diet you try, but this might be the diet for you. I think it's a great diet and a great lifestyle.
Absolutely. And, sugar addiction is something that is rampant across the United States, so much so that people
Yes.
don't even consider it an addiction. It's just the standard American diet, abbreviated SAD for a reason.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's really awesome. And I watched your latest video, which is doing very well. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank
You took
you.
us through your whole journey. And what I really liked about it, and this is something that I always try to do with my channel, I try to be vulnerable a little bit. I try to expose, it's important to exude confidence and to be confident. But at the same time, it's very important to recognize that you are a human being, right? You're going to be tempted. You're going to have cravings for things. And that's just those tests that we have to overcome every day, every single day. And lately, during the pandemic or whatever, I did gain some weight. I gained probably 15 pounds of undesirable fat, and it's all in my love handles and it's all in my lower stomach. And talking to you has really motivated me to lose that weight and get back to the old me, to where I was like when I was like 28 or something. Because in my recent video about my hair restoration, I was looking at the old photos of me, and when my wife and I and Scarlett, we went to Punta Cana for 4 days, and I had been intermittent fasting, calorie cutting so much before we went, and my face looked chiseled, like I just looked good, and I'm like, oh, I want to get back to that, you know what I mean? And so these past couple weeks, I probably lost a good 5 pounds, and I feel fantastic. The carnivore diet, I've tried it, not very hard, but I know what I have to do to lose weight. So I just have to feel hungry most of the time, unfortunately. But, given my body type and everything, I actually feel nutritionally deficient when I don't have a little bit of rice, a little bit of carb,
Yeah.
vegetables, things like that. But for those of you listening and who are just maybe hearing of the carnivore diet for the first time, um, one of my favorite people on planet Earth, the guy that actually restored my own faith journey, was Dr. Jordan Peterson. He's been on the carnivore diet for years now. And, you know, you look at that guy and he's like, I don't know, in his 50s, 60s, he looks fantastic. He looks so good. He's thin as a beanpole, you know, healthy, vibrant, smart as all get out. It's just proof and testimony that you can thrive on a diet like this. And some people really, you know, just cutting that sugar is and cutting those carbs is one of the hardest things. So, but before we get really in the weeds, why don't we talk about what the carnivore diet is? What is a day in the life of Chelsea? What does that look like? You wake up, what happens?
Yes. So I will say it depends. I go on challenges where I am more strict carnivore and where I'm more relaxed carnivore. I give myself challenges at times. For instance, in January, I did a strict called the Lion Diet carnivore, where it's just beef, salt, and water. And on those days, I wake up and usually for breakfast, I'll have some ground beef or a steak. For dinner, I also have ground beef or steak or lamb. Lamb is a ruminant animal. It's actually considered the beef family. So those two things are allowed. And I will do that for a month. And oftentimes people will look at the carnivore diet and say, well, I can't just eat steak or lamb. Well, that's okay. You don't have to. The carnivore diet is an animal-based diet. So my primary nutrition and eating comes from animals, animal products. I do eat eggs. Some people don't do that. And I will have occasional dairy, but be careful with dairy. But that's it. That's my diet. I don't eat fruit. I don't eat vegetables. I don't eat any of those things. And actually, what I'm excited about is you mentioned Dr. Jordan Peterson. And he is a great example. He had a great deal of autoimmune problems. His daughter was actually one of the forerunners in the carnivore diet. She actually got him to do it. She has terrible, terrible autoimmune problems. Absolutely horrible. They affected her life and her health dramatically, and the diet saved her. Dr. Jordan Peterson as well, a lot of autoimmune problems and mental problems. And the reason why carnivore works is it is an elimination diet. So a lot of people have sugar addiction and food sensitivities that they don't even know exist in their life because they're very subtle. Maybe some people, they're like, oh, I just have dry skin. Well, you may actually have eczema. You know, it may actually go deeper, and it may not be sugar, but a lot of foods, there are some chemical compounds in plants also that exacerbate or affect that, cause inflammation and pain. So forgive me for my tangent, but going off, I get so excited because typically the day in the life of a carnivore, I wake up, sometimes I skip breakfast. I also experiment with intermittent fasting depending on what my goals are at the time. My lunch and my dinner will be meat. And a typical day is 2 meals a day, and I will eat meat. And that's pretty much it. Wow. I can't give you too much excitement. However, there is a lot of fat involved in carnivore as well. It's not just lean meats. It's not just chicken breast. I found on the carnivore diet, if you embark, a lot of people think, oh, it's high protein. It's just a big protein diet, and it's not. It's actually a high fat diet and protein diet. And I find a lot of people start it and kind of give up because they feel like garbage because they're not getting that adequate fat. And it's just so exciting how your body works. I could talk about it all day and why fat is important, but I hope, did that answer anything? Did I do anything? So it's a meat-based diet with high fat, and it has a lot of great causes.
Yeah, you definitely addressed a lot of it. I was basically curious into your daily regimen. But you talking just now, it kicked up so many ideas or things I want to touch on. So before we really continue to get into the weeds, I kind of want to talk about intermittent fasting real quick. So a lot of people don't know it, but the body only burns two sources of fuel. It's either sugar or fat, to put it simply. Yeah. So Dr. Jason Fung, he had a profound influence on me for intermittent fasting. He is the fasting master. He basically, and I'm not a doctor, by the way, which depending on where you lean might make me more credible in some ways because I'm not about pushing pills. My channel is mostly about aesthetics. It's about boots. It's about leather, but it's not so much. It's not always about what's on the outside of my body. I'm very hyper focused on what goes into my body as well.
Yeah.
Health has always been a core focus of my life, and not to mention it was really my first indication that there was something wrong with the system. It was really my first awakening was when I was young, knowing just how sick I felt eating McDonald's and Burger King and all this junk, all these sugars, Coca-Cola, all this processed sugary crap. You know what I mean? I was poisoned as a child. I grew up feeling very much sick all the time until yeah, one day I told this story recently. One day in the high school cafeteria, instead of getting a Powerade, I got a Dasani water, and I just drank that, and I just remember feeling so clean because that was the first time in basically my entire life that I didn't start my day with a sugary drink. I felt so clean and pure. Purity is what I felt. And so, anyways, back to fasting. So your body only burns two fuel sources, sugar or fat, right? So,
Yes.
in general, 12 hours after your last meal, 10 or 12 hours, depending on the calorie load, right? Your body will switch from glycolysis into ketosis. Chelsea has basically been living in a state of ketosis, which is burning ketones, burning fat, either body fat or fat from the animal fat that you're eating. And so you've been living in a state of ketosis for a very, very long time. Now,
Yes.
keto diet, people have probably heard of it. It's basically eliminating all carbohydrates, all sugars. You're basically preventing yourself from entering into a state of glycolysis where your body is burning sugar. Because if it's burning sugar, it is not burning fat. It's doing one or the other. And in order to tap into ketosis, you have to fast and you have to abstain from sugars, to put it very simply.
Mhm.
So that said, I tried keto. I didn't feel very good on it. I tried paleo. In my opinion, the paleo people, the CrossFit people, it's sort of become its own cult. I don't really love
Yes.
paleo diet either. But that said, there are lessons to learn from every discipline and every diet. And so, for example, lately, for me to lose weight, I've been doing a lot of intense fasting. But in addition to that, when I do eat, I focus, and you touched on this in your video, I focus on the portion. I make sure not to grab from other people's plates like I normally do. Um, I focus on just eating a small dinner when I do eat. Um, so last night I had boneless wings and I got the steak bowl from Yard House. It's all quinoa, vegetables, and steak. Some carbs, but not a lot. And I'm focused when I do finally eat because, like you were saying, when you were doing the 24-hour fasts like I do, only eating
Yeah.
dinner, you would sit down and binge, and that's what I
Yep.
started to do. And that's where I started to fall off the wagon with my intermittent fasting was I would just sit down and just eat whatever the heck I wanted. And you have to be mindful when you're doing fasting to when you break your fast, do it responsibly. Don't go wild. So
Yes.
so anyways, yes. So right now I'm trying to do 24-hour fasts and I'm trying to focus on keeping that core meal very much healthy and yeah, so talking about yes, intermittent fasting, your body is not burning fat when it's burning sugar. And so if you really
Yeah.
want to start making an effect in your life, and if you're like super overweight, say, and you adopt the keto diet, fat will just start melting off of you. Or if you adopt carnivore, fat will just start melting off of you. If you give up sodas and sugars and just start, you'll see it immediately start to happen. So I'm not there. I'm only 10 or 15 pounds overweight. And so if I just did that, I could still maintain all my fat if I did eat just primarily meat and fats and stuff. I'd still maintain my fat. So that's why I have to focus on caloric restriction. So, anyways, is there anything in that jumble that you'd like to piggyback off of?
Absolutely. Actually, you have touched on a lot of really great things that I would absolutely love to address. First of all, intermittent fasting, I use it. It's an excellent tool. When I started my journey, I didn't start there.
Mhm.
And I went from giving up dessert for a couple months, and then I went into a ketogenic diet, 25 grams of carbs or less per day. And then I went into intermittent fasting because I was sick of the ketogenic diet. And I will tell you why. And I think diets, or it's not diets, it's the lifestyle that you choose when you are figuring yourself out. And I think that's number one. For instance, when I eat rice and grains, I crave sugar like crazy. It expands my stomach. It causes me to overeat and it causes me to want other sweets. I am a person, I just can't do it. However, some people are like, I can't look at meat. I can't stand that. You know what I mean? But you can eat grains.
Yeah.
I think, and you know, and going through this journey, you look and you see what everybody else is doing and all of the different diets that are going around. Paleo works for some people. The key is you have to adapt something that when you start it, you say, you know, I could live like this. If I had to live like this for the rest of my life, I could absolutely do it and not feel like I'm missing out, deprived. I'm not going to have that one day where I just like step off the wagon and go nuts down a rabbit hole. And that's really it. It's really just finding out who you are, what your body type is. I went from keto to trying the intermittent fasting because I was still craving sugar. And that's where I was like, I'm going to go from keto to intermittent fasting because I'm around all this food. I see everybody else eating all of this food and I want sweets. I remember, which was shocking because I was always like a sweet tooth, and sweets, like sugar was like my middle name.
Yeah.
And I remember the first thing I wanted were dates. That's all I wanted was like dates. I don't know, it was insane. But I'm like, I can't have dates. They're, you know, it's natural sugar, but it's sugar. And I remember just going every day. I would plan out what I was going to eat. I started to become sugar obsessed. I was thinking about that meal all day long.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn until later. I knew I couldn't live like that. So that's when I switched to carnivore. I realized I'm a person, and this may be you, because I think sugar addiction is taken seriously lightly in our society. Like people really don't see it. Like people will see me when they would see me sitting there eating a giant burger and a giant piece of cake. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, treat yourself. Go, girl. But then
Yeah.
I'm eating, like, I'm picking off the fat from my steak and just going to town. And they're like, there's something wrong with you. What is wrong with you? You know what
Right.
I mean? I think that there is like this giant societal component
Yeah.
to sugar addiction that just kind of it makes people afraid to, you know, try, or they think, you know, that's not normal. You need carbohydrates. That's, oh, I've had so many people tell me you need carbohydrates. They give you energy. That's the exact quote that they say. You
Yeah.
need carbs. They give you energy. And really, like you said, your body uses fat or sugar, and it's always, 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 I'm getting my microphone, it will always prioritize sugar.
Yes.
Sugar is fast, it's quick, it's a source your body likes, and it causes your body to shoot out insulin. Every single time you eat, it's just going to shoot out insulin. And that's why we have such a prevalence of type 2 diabetes now, because we're blowing out our insulin receptors. You know what I mean? Just
Exactly.
eating all day. And forgive me, I'll go back to intermittent fasting. What intermittent fasting does, and the tool that I use it for, is intermittent fasting gives your body a rest. I like to look at it like this. Your body is chugging coal all day to run your body, right? With energy.
Yes.
And then you dump more coal, more food, more energy into it, and it's going to grab what you just bring in, right? It's going to grab what's coming in, and it doesn't have time to go into its storage of coal that's, you know, that fat that's been sitting in your body. It's just, oh, well, it's coming in, you know what I mean? And then you eat and it takes a smoke break. The workers kind of take a smoke break, and just because they're like, oh, it's easy. My job is done for me. So we're just going to kind of crash here. But when you're intermittent fasting, the smoke break is over. You know what I mean? Like it's just not constantly dumping energy into the body. So it's got to go into its storage of energy and start using it. And that's kind of where it is. If you eat a bagel with cream cheese, it's going to eat that bagel up. It's going to use it because it's quick, simple sugar, and it's going to go store the fat.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, and again, that's the mechanics of it. What you don't realize is your body actually only needs like 4 grams of carbohydrates or 4 grams of sugar to actually complete its metabolic process. And your body will turn that fat into glycogen. Your body, your liver, is still going to turn that fat into cellular energy. You know what I mean? So you're not starving yourself. You're not robbing your body of anything. You're not depleting yourself of anything if you starve it of sugar. You're just kind of making it a well-functioned machine. It's like diesel fuel for your body when you're eating fat over sugar. But another thing that you touched on, again, and it kind of goes into what I've discovered about dieting, and it's hard because we are not purely logical, mechanical beings. We are emotional beings. There are a lot of mental things that go behind the why we eat, what we're eating, our eating habits. And typically, and I found this with myself too, your outward body is typically a reflection of what's kind of going on inside of you mentally, emotionally, and physically. I see a lot of people who they're like, I got to go on a diet. I got to lose 50 pounds. I got to run 5 miles a day and I've got to go to the gym 10 times a week. If I don't do that, I'm literally never going to lose weight. And, and that mentality is totally wrong. I
Hmm.
think that when we approach any eating lifestyle or any diet in general, there's a lot of mechanics that kind of go behind it. A lot of it is why, you're doing it. And then there's an equation. It's like your goal equals the motivation minus the cost. And if you kind of go into this equation and figure out, I want to lose 20 pounds, what's my motivation? Well, I want to look better in my bathing suit this summer. Well, what's the cost? I can't eat fast food, right? So you're like, well, the cost is too high for
Hmm.
me to go into to get my goal. So what people do is they quit. Instead, why don't you negotiate with yourself? The cost will be I can't go eat fast food 6 days per week. And then you think, you know what? My cost has gone down, my motivation has gone up, and my goal is achievable. And I think that people want everything all at once,
Hmm.
and they tend to overlook the mechanics behind it and the fact that you really have to get to the logical part of your brain to kind of make it work and not do this all or nothing.
Yeah.
Back to intermittent fasting. Intermittent
No, that's
fasting,
good.
I've actually used it as a tool for when because I had a lot of weight to lose. I
Hmm.
didn't want skin. You know what I mean? That's actually a fear. And by the way, I'm talking to people who have a lot of weight to lose, not Dale's, 15 few pounds. You know what I mean? I mean, people where I was, where you have a daunting goal ahead of you. And some people have said, I'm so afraid of all that loose, saggy skin. I am so afraid of the aftermath of this. And they're almost afraid to try.
Hmm.
But I'm here to tell you intermittent fasting is actually a great tool for that. What
Yes.
it can do is when you start to fast and you're basically giving your body kind of a rest. You're
Hmm.
saying, I'm not shoving any more food in there. So your body kind of takes a little break and then it relaxes a little bit. And then what it starts to do is say, it looks around and it's like, well, I'm not shoveling coal. I can kind of see what's going on here. And what you will activate is a process called autophagy. And
Yes.
that is where your cells who have been given a rest, they actually will go in and clean up the other dead, gross cells in your body, things that have been floating around. It sort of gives it a chance to do some house cleaning in your body. And part of the cells that it gobbles up are dead skin cells,
Hmm.
loose skin cells, old cells just floating around. And it will actually, if you're willing to be patient and give it a try, it will actually help prevent that big, loose, saggy skin. And it's an embarrassing, again, being vulnerable. This is a subject that I actually get asked about quite a bit because I've lost a significant amount of weight. I get asked a lot if I have a bunch of loose hanging skin. And I am here to tell you, I definitely have a little bit of a mom belly, of course. I don't know that I will ever get rid of all of that, but no, I actually, because I was slow and patient and applied intermittent fasting, I was able to lose the weight without a bunch of loose, saggy skin. So if you maybe have some skin, and this you can start at any time. If you've already lost the weight and you have loose skin, it's a really great tool if you want to lose the skin. Intermittent fasting, I think, is an absolutely excellent tool. But what I learned the hard way when I first started, I wasn't ready. I still had a serious sugar addiction. But if you have binge eating disorder, which I have been diagnosed with in the past, I have a history of binge eating disorder. And if you have serious sugar addictions, intermittent fasting can be an excuse to just go on a binge. You really need to, I think that it's good when you're sort of secure in where you are and really know your habit before you embark on intermittent fasting, or else you can just end up with eating that is not ordered.
Yes, so true.
Yeah.
That's well said. I really like that. And yeah, I
Right.
like that you use the word cleaning. Dr. Jason Fung, he describes intermittent fasting as deep spring cleaning, essentially.
Yeah.
And what you're describing, the autophagy, um, I don't know the exact scientific definition of autophagy, but what he says is that yes, when you start fasting, yeah, your body starts eating up junk proteins
Yeah.
all throughout your body. That can include cancer. You could literally eat up cancer cells because, well, cancer only eats sugar, for example. So if you're fasting a lot, it's not just a weight loss method, it's a therapy, literally. And so it's going through, and like you said, Dr. Jason Fung, he described having patients that went from 300 pounds and they had skin tags on their neck and back that actually, as they progressed through the fasting process, the therapy, skin tags would literally fall off their bodies, you know? So if it's going to eliminate junk protein like a skin tag, think of what it's doing for your skin. I notice my skin tightens up as well when I go through prolonged fastings. Yeah, initially you'll have some loose skin, absolutely, but give it time. And sometimes you have to dedicate months and years to this, but your skin will tighten back up. Your body will eat that skin. If you give it enough of a caloric deprivation, it will go through and it will clean everything up, because essentially food is a distraction. When you eat, your body all of a sudden it has to release all these digestive enzymes. It has to figure out what to do with all this stuff. It's a distraction, and it's not just a distraction from a lot of your body's functions. It's also a distraction from your immune system. Your immune system takes a hit every time you eat. It can't focus on, cancer cells, or you have a flu or something. That's why when you're sick, you naturally want to eat less. It's because it's your body's natural way of saying, quit feeding me, you idiot. Like, I need to deal with this infection or with this virus. Stop it. I need to focus on this. And if you keep eating, I can't do that. I can't target this. And that's why fasting allows your body a laser focus look at itself, diagnose to run diagnostics and figure out what needs to be burned up now. And yes, a lot of it's fat, a lot of it is junk protein. And a common concern that I hear from guys is, oh, it's going to eat my muscles first. No. Dr. Jason Fung uses this analogy. If you're in a super freezing cold winter, and you need to heat up your house, are you going to go outside and get some logs to burn, or are you going to chop up your couch? That's essentially what these people think. They think that instead of burning the logs outside to warm my house, I'm going to chop up my perfectly good couch and use that as fuel. And, the couch being your muscles, essentially. No, it's not going to do that. It will go after protein. It's going after junk protein you don't want. Not all protein is good, right? And one of my favorites, David Avocado Wolf, he's controversial, but he's also a flat earther. I'm not a flat earther, but he's got a lot of wisdom. I listen to him so much. He's so wise. He got me on chaga mushrooms, for example. I have some here, actually. Hold that up to the camera. That's a chunk of chaga mushroom. Yes. So he got me on that.
Yes.
Chaga it's an adaptogen. It teaches your immune system essentially how to think smarter. And the longer you drink it, the smarter your immune system becomes. Similar to fasting, the longer you do it, the more you sort of evolve in a way into a leaner, more fit version of yourself. Anyways, David Avocado Wolf, he released a video recently saying you don't need all that food. And he does periodic fastings for like 16, 20 days sometimes, just water. And what he says is you're already made. You're not going to vanish. You're already made. Your bones are there, your muscles are there, your skin's there, your organs are all there, and you're loaded with vitamins. You don't need food. Like, these people, a lot of people think they need food constantly to stay alive. It's like, no, you don't. Your fat is stored energy. And that's how to think about it, right? All fat is calories that haven't been burned yet. So you owe it to yourself to use some of those calories that you've stored away. It's just stored energy. So there's nothing wrong with using it. You're not starving yourself. If you're obese, you're not going to starve yourself by not eating. You already have the food. It's all over you. And one of the cleanest sources of fuel for you is your own tailor-made, genetically made body fat. It's some of the cleanest fuel you can burn. So there is absolutely no shame in tapping into that at all.
And actually, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I remember in the 90s, that's where we grew up, there was just this huge stigma against fasting. And it was the same mentality. If you fast, your body's going to eat up all your proteins and all of your muscles, and you're just starving yourself to death. And if you're fasting, there's like a problem with you. There were like Lifetime movies devoted to And I am happy though, because intermittent fasting is more widely used, it's more widely accepted. And I've heard of people with cancer, fasting has helped because yes, cancer feeds on sugar. But also recently I ran into an old friend and she said she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's okay now. She's doing really well, but she gave up sugar. And I thought, why? And she said, well, she said my cancer apparently was estrogen fuel. And she
Hmm.
said sugar actually increases production of estrogen. And I
Oh.
didn't know that. So it's all kind of related. I mean,
Mhm.
I think you can cut out the middleman, sugar, cancer, you know what I mean? But you'll find, I have found, especially when I was really at my peak heaviness and eating poorly, and sometimes you'll notice a theme with people who are morbidly obese. I'm not talking about vanity weight, I'm saying morbidly obese.
Mhm.
You'll find even men, their faces become more feminine
Yeah.
and rounded, and their voices actually tend to be a little higher. And that is a good indication that you are producing a ton of estrogen.
Yep.
And I've never been a man, but I can say that they're probably not super excited about that. But it's definitely something to consider as hormones control a lot of our body,
Yeah.
So
Definitely. Well,
anyway,
that's
that's
not all.
exciting.
Yeah, that's not all that happens to men when they become a. Speaking of the estrogenic effects, I'm aware of some other not so desirable outcomes. I try to keep this show family friendly, but you could probably read between the lines of what I'm saying there. And yeah, a couple weeks ago, I've recently had to switch from wearing extra small shirts to small. Mostly because, yeah, in the chest region, my body stores a lot of fat up here too, and I do
Yeah.
not like the way that that looks at all. And so, that's another thing that fasting can help address is
Yes.
it'll create a more chiseled chest. It's not just about the love handles. My body is smart the way that it stores fat. It's very intelligent.
Yeah, our bodies are smart. That's the thing. Like, you're not going to fast and your body's instantly like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't
Right.
know what to do. You are literally a machine designed to keep you alive. You know
Yes.
what I mean? To survive for long periods of time. I mean, I guess it goes back to, survival times where food was not just, you couldn't go to KFC. You actually had to go find a chicken on
Yeah.
your own and get it. Our
So,
bodies are intelligent. And
yes.
this goes back, if you're a religious person, the Lord designed us and it wasn't stupid.
Right.
Our bodies are very smart. I
Yes.
think that a lot of the thing with fasting is people, when they become hungry, there
Mm.
is something visceral and emotional that happens, and they're almost afraid of the discomfort of being hungry.
Yeah.
And you can attest to this. When you first start intermittent fasting, your first couple of days, you might be a little grouchy. It might be uncomfortable because you're not used to this. You're
Right.
not used to prolonged periods without eating, but you do adapt. Your body is extremely powerful and habits can be developed. And, you know, to go through this and to make the conscious decision, I'm going to fast or I'm going to embark on whatever you're embarking on, just know that discomfort is,
All right, and we are back.
yes.
Sorry about that. All right, so we were talking about the pain of hunger and the fear of
Yes.
hunger when fasting, right? Yes.
Discomfort. People have a genuine fear of being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the hesitation lies in fasting. And I think my own personal experience, Dale, when I decided like for once and for all, I really need to change my lifestyle and back to just giving up dessert. I remember, and this is why I really would like to relate to people because I think that people can kind of share in this experience. I remember I held a lot of the reason why I was so big, the reason why I had so many issues with eating and binging and everything else. And I didn't really fully understand this until after I decided to change it. I held so much resentment and so much pain. And there were so many things in me that I just never addressed and never really acknowledged. But it wasn't until I said, well, I'm going to give up sweets, whatever. I'm going to actually pay attention to my eating patterns. I remember I would just be sitting there and I would get a thought. I would remember a conversation that I had that
Mm-hmm.
didn't go well. I would remember something earlier in the day where I was like, oh, I wish I would have said that. And every single time I did that, I went to the pantry. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And one day I actually kept track of it. And I think I kept track of it for like 10 minutes until like the next shiny object came along. In 10 minutes, I reached for the pantry 12 times. And I
Whoa.
didn't realize what I would do. I wouldn't just sit and just like eat, but I would grab pantry stuff. I'd grab a cracker, I'd grab a couple of chips, I'd grab a piece of candy, whatever was in the pantry. And I thought, whoa, my eyes opened. I had no idea that that was like such an automatic response
Yeah.
to, and then I was like in pain because it wasn't that I was uncomfortable because I was hungry. I was uncomfortable because I was hurting. Something was hurting me and I couldn't run to my comfort. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And just grab something. But I was doing this subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. So it's not the hunger that people are actually afraid of. It is uncomfortable to be hungry, but it's a natural thing and we can all survive it. It's that comfort that we're starving ourselves of. And that's where there's a lot of, that's why I say like your outward appearance is kind of what's going on inside. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to find new comforts. I started going for walks. And that's where I really do. I tie my spirituality and my relationship with God quite a bit with this because God sort of helped me go through all of those memories and confront them head on and deal with them in a progressive, positive way and get rid of all of that resentment
Yeah.
and but I think that that's where there's a big hesitation with intermittent fasting, which is a really, really great tool in general. I think people do fasts. For instance, if you're going for a colonoscopy, they tell you to fast. You know what I mean? There are
That's
medical procedures that even, doctors,
yeah.
but even like it's widely accepted that there are periods of time where you should fast. There are spiritual fasts in church. You know, there
Absolutely.
are people who, when they're given some really horrible news, medically, cancer, etc., what have you, where they'll go through a period of prayer and fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reason for that. And it doesn't just heal you physically because it's doing all kinds of wonders for you physically, but it clears up a lot of the emotional gobbledygook in you as well.
Yes.
So I
Absolutely.
am a big proponent of intermittent fasting. I'm a big proponent of knowing yourself and going about it in a proper way.
Mm-hmm.
But it is an absolutely wonderful tool. And it really, the more and more it becomes popular, I don't know if you follow Dr. Berg. He's
Yeah.
another one. He's a big influencer and he's a big proponent of intermittent fasting. And he was the first guy who I heard say, when you break your fast, the first thing you should have is protein or fat. He
Yeah.
typically, I think he's recommended like bone broth. I know a lot of people who break their fast with bone broth,
Yeah.
because it's sort of like this benign thing that actually fills you up way more than you think it's going to. It's warm, it's soothing, and that helps you from going off on a crazy binge fast.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, Dr. Berg, he's got his critics too.
Yeah,
Anytime anybody gets too popular or starts
yeah,
pushing the narrative too far in one direction, it'll attract detractors. Yeah, I really like him. I really like his message. Yeah, is he a Scientologist? Sure. I don't care. Like I don't care like who what the person's
yeah,
religious affiliations are or whatever. If they have a good message to spread, I'm all about hearing it. And he helped me with so much stuff. He also pushes mustard a lot.
yeah.
And talking about foods and the color of foods, the pigment of the food tells you what it's going to do for your body, essentially. And we talked about this recently, how green essentially, green leaves, the pigment green, it cleans you. Yellow is tissue building, which makes sense. Our skin is, well, kind of yellow, I don't know, yellowish.
Yes, I gotcha.
Yes, orange is immune system. So think oranges, goji berries. Purple, my favorite fruit is acai. Purple is nervous system. That was one of my big health epiphanies when I discovered acai when I was living in Hawaii. I started losing so much weight, and we could talk about this more. There's so many
Yeah.
directions we could take this, but I was I was a little overweight when I got to Hawaii. I had really fallen off the rails. This was back in 2009. I was working nights. I was working in Georgia, working nights, and I would get off and I'd just go get some breakfast burritos from like Wendy's or there was another fast food chain. It's the one where they roller skate. they have the ice slushies.
Sonic.
Sonic, yeah, yeah. I'd go to Sonic for breakfast. I was not taking care of myself. I wasn't working out. I showed up to Hawaii. I think I was about 175 pounds, and when a friend of mine introduced me to acai bowls, and something in that, I ate it and I didn't think much about it. I didn't really even like it that much at first. But then 2 weeks went by and I had a craving for that acai again. I'm like, what is going on here? So I went and ate it, and it's all I ate for 2 weeks straight for dinner. That's the only thing I ate. So it's acai is a berry native to Brazil, the Amazon. It looks like a blueberry, but it's super nutrient dense because all you eat is the skin, essentially. You think like a blueberry, the most, the doctors tell you this, the most
Yes.
nutritious part of the fruit is the skin, like in apples and acai berries. Well, so yeah, the acai berry is 95% pit. So it's wood, basically. You can't eat it. And so yeah, when you eat an acai bowl, the acai, the purple stuff that you're eating at the bottom, they also put strawberries, blueberries, granola. They sprinkle on some coconut shavings and drizzle it with honey. And sometimes they'll throw chia seeds on top as well. But long story short, all I was eating for 2 weeks for dinner was acai. And I started going to the bathroom, and then like crazy, like just going to the bathroom, going to the bathroom. I'm like, where's all this coming from? There's no way this is all stuck in my gut, which is gross to think about, by the way. But then one day I came home and I looked at myself in the mirror, and my waist was rail thin out of nowhere. And I'm just like, it's the acai. Like I needed a fiber flush. I needed a serious nutritional. I needed dense nutrition because I had been starved of nutrients. But I also needed a fiber flush, and that's what happened. And so yeah, back to the colors. I also think there was something wrong with my nervous system because the purple pigment supports his nervous system support. And so I think there was something wrong with me. I was drinking a lot then and eating just very unhealthy. And I think something nervous system related needed fixed as well. I think that's why I craved the acai so much. But the other pigments, you have brown, which brown coffee makes you go to the bathroom. The Yeah, yeah. What's interesting is blue is very rare. It's very rare to find the blue pigment. I think it has something to do help with ocular health or something to that nature. I forget exactly
Okay.
what blue does, but blue is incredibly rare. I mean, you could find it in spirulina, blue-green algae, but it's actually very, very difficult for nature to make the blue pigment, a real blue pigment. So yeah, the blue's an interesting one, but black is the longevity pigment. So black tea, chocolate has three pigments in it: brown, purple, and black. Yes, chocolate is the most common trait among centenarians. They all eat chocolate. People that live into their hundreds, they eat chocolate all the time, and that's why cacao is so miraculous in a lot of ways. Anyways, what you're saying about the fasting and the fear involved, I noticed that when I start to lose weight, I start getting braver. Because what I'm doing is I'm confronting that core weakness and I'm saying no to myself. And well, not to mention, if you are spiritual, you believe in God, and you're a Christian, that gluttony is one of the deadly sins, right? And so by confronting gluttony and removing it from your life, it does so many wonderful things, not just for your body, but for yourself spiritually as well. I notice a much deeper connection with God when I'm in a fasted state. But that fear, it's confronting that fear, it's confronting discomfort, and being addicted to sugar, being addicted to food in general, and feeling that you have that reliance on it. It takes a certain amount of bravery to say no to that
Yeah.
comfort. It really does. And I notice, yes, there is a testosterone boost, and I do start to just look more manly when I fast, and that confronting that fear makes you much more adept, I think, at risk taking. It makes you much less of a wuss, which I hate.
Yes.
What's one thing to really, one thing that will get any guy to do anything risky is call him a wuss, and 9 times out of 10 he'll do it. He'll swing across that. He'll take that rope and swing across the ravine if all you have to do is call him a wuss. Because men don't like to feel like wusses, and unfortunately, in today's society, well, it's probably always been a constant, but with the seven deadly sins, I feel like so much of our society is built on this idea of instant gratification.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime, get your stuff.
Excess.
Yeah, excess, which we're all guilty of. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to preach or anything, but yeah, the fasting, the caloric deprivation, it has benefits that are physical and metaphysical. And I think if you can confront that, you do become a much better version of yourself. If you can discard those comforts, set them aside. And yeah, like what you were saying, you were comfort eating. You'd get stressed and you would need that comfort, that blanket. But you adapted, you found other means of comfort. Taking walks, going out into the sunlight helps me a lot when I'm feeling tempted, when I'm fasting.
Yeah.
So yeah. But so why don't you talk to me a little bit more about, okay, so right off the bat, my fear about going carnivore is the lack of fiber, because I do have that link with fiber. I do feel that fiber pulled me out of a rut before, and that's one of my fears, is going fiberless, and just because meat is hard to digest, for your gut. I think it's chicken is the easiest. Chicken leaves your stomach in 1.5 hours. Beef leaves your stomach in 2 to 3 hours, and then pork actually takes the longest, like 4 hours to exit your stomach. Pork is hell on your digestive system. So talk to me about the gut health and the lack of fiber involved with carnivore.
Right. So this is another very common question that I get asked. It's a kind of difficult to explain, because if you are full on dedicated and into the carnivore diet and your body has adapted to this lifestyle, I guess I'm getting to know your audience very well. I'm very regular.
Okay.
Okay, so I will say that I get asked quite a bit if I ever go to the bathroom, or if I go to the bathroom too much. I am regular. Everything, I think there's a chart with pictures right there on the best one. You know what I mean? So from what I understand, fiber makes your stool heavier and bulkier. It's not actually digested by the body. I think that's why it kind of pushes everything out. That's the function of it. And I guess fiber with a lot of water as well helps to clean out your system. From my experience and from what I've learned about the carnivore diet, you don't need fiber. It's actually not a necessary thing. That being said, with the digestion of meat. So, and this is where carnivore can get dicey for some people. If you have a gallbladder, because basically when you eat fat, your gallbladder releases bile, and it emulsifies the fat and it breaks it down. So if your gallbladder is non-existent or it's not functioning well, your personal body is going to have a more difficult time processing this meat and digesting this meat. However, if your gallbladder is fine, and this kind of goes with the liver, because the liver and the gallbladder are besties, your liver isn't functioning properly, you're going to have a very difficult time processing the meat. It's going to sort of build up, and you're going to have complications, and that's where the constipation comes in, and that's where digestion comes in. And again, this kind of goes back to you and your own body. You can live without fiber. That's the best explanation that I can have. Just like you can live without carbs, you can live without fiber. However, some people, like you said, with grains, rice, things like that, they help you feel satisfied and energized. That may be something your body desires and needs and can function on. And you should probably eat that,
Yeah.
For sure. I'm a person, I don't need the fiber. I don't need that. And my digestive system works very well. My liver function, I've had my blood panels done. My liver function is high. I'm doing well. So all things equal, if you have a gallbladder and it's functional and your liver is fine, you don't need fiber. You actually don't need it. If you're a person who craves grains and you can balance yourself really well, and fiber you find to be a digestive aid, then by all means enjoy your fiber. Another related to that, actually, and I will address this question now. I get asked a lot why I don't have scurvy.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So Yes, that's like another really popular one. I think they're kind of tied in. It's do I ever go to the bathroom and why don't I have scurvy?
Right.
Now, they
Yeah.
have found in keto, and this goes with ketogenic diets too, because when you're doing keto properly, you're also very, very low carb and you get into a state of ketosis and it's very similar.
Hmm.
They find with people with, um, and there's actually I've done a lot of research on this, and I will say it's not completely conclusive. They actually don't fully understand why, but what they have agreed on, and I'm referencing two doctors now, Dr. Anthony Chafee, a carnivore and an advocate for the diet, and I really love his work. He really goes into the medical process and how it all ties together. And Dr. Sean Baker and Dr. Ken Berry. These are all medical physicians who are proponents and advocates of the carnivore diet and have found a lot of success with it. I'll sum up what I've learned. They're not fully sure officially why you don't need vitamin C. However, they find when people are on typical American diets or high carbohydrate diets that the vitamin C is actually leached out of your system quite a bit. However, when you are starving yourself of those carbohydrates or depriving your body of those carbohydrates, you don't need the vitamin C. And there are vitamins in meat. I mean, people think that beef is just fat beef. There's magnesium, iron, potassium. There's more potassium in bacon than there is in a banana. You know what I
Whoa.
mean? You're still getting quite a lot of vitamins, minerals, nutrients from this meat. And they find that with ketogenic and carnivore diets, you actually don't need vitamin C. You
Wow.
don't need to consume it. You don't, and my immune system is stellar.
Wow.
So I actually found that I got sick, colds and stuff. I get them. I'm a human, it happens, but it's way less. It's for a much shorter duration than the typical person. And I use that when everybody colds are going around. I will typically either not get it or I'll get it for a much shorter duration than other people. So meat is enough to sustain you. You
Yeah.
are getting adequate nutrition from meat and you're fine.
Awesome. Wow. I couldn't have asked for a better explanation than that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So you sparked something I wanted to bring up in my head. This is something that I've grappled with for a long time. You're saying how it's not necessarily that we need all these vitamins, that we've sort of inherited this paradigm that, oh, vitamins, vitamins, vitamins. I think there's so much not understood yet, and there's so many surprises that you can learn from a diet like carnivore. And one of the buzzwords that was going around when I started losing my weight in Hawaii was antioxidants. And oh, it stops free radicals or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing to understand about antioxidant versus oxidation is that sugar is an heavy oxidizer. It heavily oxidizes your body, whereas people equate like things like fruit as an antioxidant. Well, you want to know what the ultimate antioxidant is, and also people don't have a firm grasp on what oxidation versus antioxidation is. Oxidation is anything that essentially makes you swell. And so exercise, for example, is oxidation, but you need it. Exercise is very healthy. So you need both. You need both oxidation and antioxidation. When I'm in a deep fast, that's the best antioxidant. And it's nothing. It's actually no food going in. It's weird to think about, but as you're shrinking, your body, it's it's fighting inflammation. It's reducing all sorts of inflammation everywhere. That's the ultimate antioxidant. And so your own body fat, you could think of it as the ultimate antioxidant. Whereas, things like what is it? Sugar, sodas, all these things, they create it kicks off a process of oxidizing yourself, and that's where you swell out. That would be a negative oxidization, if that's a word. Whereas exercise is a good one. I bloat when I exercise. I swell. My whole body swells when we work out. But that's a positive version of it. And that's why there exists the debate is, oh, how much exercise is good for you? Well, it's a healthy stress. You're tearing down muscle fiber, but not to the point of injury. You're tearing it down so that it can become a better version of itself. And that's essentially all things with health is you need challenge in order to become better. Is it challenging to eat a Twinkie? No. That's not a good form of oxidization. Is it challenging to run 5 miles? Yes. That might be a good version of oxidization. So all these things, all these concepts of, that we're sort of fed. Like I was taught, oh yeah, you need strawberries are high in antioxidants. It's like, well, that's partially true. Like the fibers and the vitamins in the strawberry are antioxidants, contain antioxidants, but at the same time, strawberries have sugar, which is an oxidant, but that doesn't get talked about. It's so nature packages things up, and you need to understand that everything that you eat is comprised of a vast array of complicated mechanisms that are doing good things and bad things. And
I think we overcomplicate it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think we truly do. I think that you can sort of equate the oxidation with inflammation. When you are exercising and you're breaking your muscles down in order to rebuild them, there's a form of inflammation involved in that. When you are eating a bunch of sugar and junk food, your cells are swelling and accumulating fluid. That's also inflammation. One hurts in a good way and one hurts in a bad way. One is more permanent and one is more temporary. And I also think that there is a great mind-body connection. You will crave things that your body needs. I've heard of carnivores. Organ meat is a big controversy in the carnivore diet. Do you need organ meat? Because there are a lot of health benefits, vitamins, nutrients, minerals in organ meat. And it's one of those, if you like organ meat, go for it. If you don't need it. But there was this one carnivore. She said, I was on carnivore for a while, and then I just started craving liver for a month. She's like, I just started craving it. I ate liver like crazy. And then after the month was over, my body said, I'm done. I don't need it anymore. And just, she never ate liver again until the next time. But I think that especially women, a good example, the best example is women when they are experiencing their cycles. A common craving is chocolate and peanut butter and things of that nature. And I think it's your body telling you some kind of mineral nutrient, something that you need. I think that if you are craving strawberries, obviously, I don't think strawberries are an unhealthy food. And actually, in fact, berries have a much lower glycemic index than other fruits, such as apples and grapes. You know what I mean? I would be hard pressed to say, well, that's bad for you. But if your body is craving strawberries, maybe there is something in there that you need. But if you're like, I need more antioxidants, so I'm going to eat foods rich in antioxidants and it has absolutely no rhyme or reason, I think that's where we can kind of overcomplicate it and kind of go off on the deep end with those sorts of things.
Definitely. And berries are a good example because look at how nature packages our sugar, right? In the form of a berry. It's accompanied with, you have the sugar, which is the reward that draws you to the berry, but it's also got a ton of fiber. It's wrapped in fiber. It's wrapped in vitamins. That's how nature actually intended for us to consume sugar. It did not intend for us to consume a bag of Skittles, which is just pure sugar. When nature's going to give us sugar,
it's chemicals.
Yeah, and chemicals, exactly. So when nature intends us to consume something, they wrap it up in its own package, and that package is an ingenious design, the way that nature does it, and the way that we've done it. We've just taken it and we just said, oh yeah, refine the sugar, just get all the fiber out, get all the uncomfortable stuff out, just give me that sugar, it tastes so good, and that's that gluttony, and that's that greed that sort of dominates our modern paradigm. So always ask yourself, how does nature wrap it up for you? In an animal, so many people eat the whole animal, the skin, the muscles, the organs. And yeah, there's times where I crave liver as well. I love liver. I love chicken heart. I love the neck. I love all that stuff. It's very rich in nutrients. And what you touched on was how women crave chocolate during their cycles. Chocolate contains therapeutic amounts of magnesium. And David Avocado talks about this, and he's sort of lived this for so long. Cacao is his number one thing. And he talks about how chocolate he's come to this conclusion after decades. Chocolate is a mineral supplement. He doesn't see it as a candy. He doesn't see it as, he sees it as a food, but he more precisely defines it as a mineral supplement. And when I think about it, yeah, it's so rich in sediments and minerals. It's unreal. And that's why I eat a lot of chocolate. Not to mention it's a natural mood booster. And I noticed when I started taking magnesium, because I've heard that we're all deficient in magnesium, I didn't notice a single change in any of my physiology. but I was eating half a dark chocolate bar every day. So that explains I'm not deficient in magnesium actually. Many people are, but I'm not because I eat so much dang chocolate.
There you go, Dale. You're saving yourself.
So yeah, it's really wonderful. And I think as we lead a certain lifestyle, it's kind of like, me fasting now. I have all these epiphanies about fasting. It's kind of the difference of knowing there's an attic in your house and actually going into the attic and looking around and looking at the boards and looking at the ceilings. The more you're into something, kind of like you with carnivore, you're in it and you sort of can see a 360-degree view of what's going on. And that's something that you can't experience unless you actually do it and live it. So, what's that like being inside that 360-degree atmosphere of carnivore? What's that look like from your end? I know it's a very broad question, but what does that feel like to be in that room of carnivore living?
Well, I will say, I'll describe it as this. When I first opened that attic, a bunch of bats flew out and there were a bunch of cobwebs in there. This is what I'll say. Before carnivore, that attic I was in a prison almost, you know what I mean? And the attic for me was actually the exit that I didn't know existed until I actually just opened the door.
Wow.
I wasn't just addicted to sugar. I was the equivalent of an alcoholic
Hmm.
living in a bar. And as long as you were living in that prison, a slave to your own habits, like you said, you get into, because it's nature, it's life. You have to live life. And I don't care who you are or how disciplined you are or how regimented you are, you're going to go through cycles of life where you are under high stress, where you are experiencing quite a bit of difficulty. And there will be periods where your habits and what you're eating and how you're living your life, they all kind of slip to the back in order to just function and get through the day. And when you do that and you don't notice that your habits, oh, I've stopped and got fast food every day this week, you know what I mean? You don't really pay attention to it. Those
Yeah.
habits just sort of creep up on you. And then those habits become a prison. You know what I mean? They're not just habits, they're absolute prisons that you're sort of dependent on. And this just where it all kind of comes full circle, where you acknowledge that something has to change. And typically that comes some people, like when they're in a position, oh, summer's coming, I've got a wedding coming up, I've got a special event coming up, I need to fit into this dress, I need to fit into this bathing. That is their catalyst, that is their wake up moment, and that's the acknowledgement that things have to change. And then you say, well, what does that mean? And
Hmm.
that's where you kind of start to say, well, that's when you become aware of your habits, and that's when things start to change. And it's always, always a gradual process. I have been on this cycle and I have talked to people on this cycle, and I've seen it over and over and over and over again. People who acknowledge that there's something that needs to change and there's habits that aren't working, but the motivation, it's just not justifying the action to change it. And they want to bite the whole sandwich at once. And
Yeah.
for instance, when someone says, I want to look like The Rock, I want
Oh,
that body of The Rock. Now, I want to tell you whatever your goal is right now. And I'm giving you the best advice I can because I lived this and I fell so many times and I'm getting up, and I'm giving you a shortcut to this. Say, I want to look like The Rock, and you write it down. I want you to put it in your little hope chest, write it in your little diary. But what you're really telling yourself is, I want to develop the habits of someone who looks like The Rock.
interesting.
And what that means is every time you make a decision, because that's all it is, it's everything that you do, everything that you become, every goal that you have is based off of every little tiny decision that you make. And it's not big decisions. It's getting a water versus getting a soda. Those are the decisions that are actually going to get you to look like The Rock.
Hmm.
So when you wake up and you say, today I'm going to drink water instead of soda at lunch, that is literally a decision that's what would The Rock choose? You know what I mean? When you go about your day, you literally, every time someone offers you lunch, you have to consciously say to yourself, what would The Rock eat for lunch? You know
Right.
what I mean? What would, and instead of everybody trying to do everything all at once and you know, again, it's sort of like when you're making those decisions, you're circling the attic, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But you're still not opening the door of the attic. And when you go into an attic and it's full of stuff, do you just grab it all and throw it in a trash can all at once? You know, maybe you're cleaning out that attic. No, you have to go through every box. You
Yeah.
have to really get to know yourself. And I think that whatever lifestyle you choose, I think the one thing that I've carnivore, keto, everybody can kind of agree on paleo is, first of all, processed food is not good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Processed food and processed sugar are not good for you. And when you give up those things, you're going to feel better immediately. You're going to start to feel better. And every time you feel a little bit better, you're going to gain a little bit more confidence in yourself and you're going to get one step closer to looking like the Rock. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Definitely.
Or whatever your goal may be.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and I don't know. I hope that answers your attic question.
No,
But
that was a
that's what it's like with carnivore. When I found carnivore, I got I just had such a sugar addiction. The only way I was ever going to live normally, you know what I mean, and just be comfortable in life with food in it was to get rid of any sugar cravings, any sugar addiction. That was my giant. That was what I had to overcome, and I found the means to do that eventually. But I
wow.
think that that's what the attic is. It's finding out what your giants are, what
Yeah,
your habits are, what your patterns are, and figuring out how to get around that obstacle, you
definitely.
know.
Wow, that is really profoundly well put.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, and yeah, that taps into the whole thing of, you know, you touched on writing it down, writing your goal down. That's also a very, I've heard, a very powerful way of getting there. And the other thing, here's what trips me up mentally is
Mhm.
is not forgiving myself for my past sins, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, part of my hang up mentally with fasting and weight loss is thinking, oh, look at all this this time that I've messed up for. Look at what a train wreck I was for all this time. Do I even deserve to look good again? Do I even deserve to lose that weight due to all my human weakness and mistakes that I made? And the answer that you have to constantly have in your mind is, yes, you deserve it. Frickin' trash that old you, trash those old habits. But that's part of it is, you know, I kind of look at it like, oh, I've sort of lived the last 3 years sort of just eating healthy, but not really restricting myself the way that I should have. I really wasn't as disciplined as I should have. And I sort of look at it as, you know, is that all a lost cause to get serious again? And what you're saying is your desire for the outcome has to outweigh the immediate gratification of eating, of you know, satiating yourself. A friend of mine is Muslim, and I ask him all these questions about fasting because Muslims fast from, I don't know, daylight to daybreak, no
Yeah.
water, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing at all, and it's unreal. And I ask him how he does it, and he just says, you know, the desire for your faith has to outweigh your desire for worldly pleasures. And I just, yeah, that's so profound. But it's true, you know. And part of it is, like you said, the Rock having that goal. This is gonna sound weird, but when I'm fasting and I have like moments of weakness, I just pull up like a picture of Ryan Gosling, and I'm like, that's where I'm headed. I am not backing off of this. That is my goal. I want that waistline, that rail thin waistline again. I don't want this droop under my chin anymore. I want all that to go away. So yes, having that goal and like sticking it somewhere where you'll see it, I think also really helps. You know, when I watch Daniel Craig in his movies, you know, that makes me, it puts the image into my head of what I'm going for. And we talked about this recently. We could talk about it more when it picks back up. It's about to time out on us in another 2 minutes. But you talked about the environment that you're in. If you're, I think you said 57% of people, if their spouse is overweight, they will gain weight out of sympathy or just being in proximity of seeing that person being overweight. It's almost like subconsciously you're telling yourself it's okay to look like that. It's okay to eat like them and to become like them. Whereas, you know, on the contrary, if your spouse is in good shape, 57% of people will feel that inclination to get in shape, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but your environment has so much to do with your discipline, you know, and
Yeah.
your decisions. So
Yes. And actually, it's if your spouse or best friend becomes obese, you are 57% more likely to become obese. And that's if neither of you even talk about it. Like you
yes,
don't even acknowledge that you've gained weight, whatever. That's just naturally what occurs. And the opposite is true as well. You
yes,
know, it can be if someone gets healthy, you're 57% more likely to get healthy. But those are just, you don't even have to talk about it. It's subconscious. You don't even know what's happening.
a product
Yeah,
of
it's
the
incredible.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's why, yeah, it would look really weird if I hung up a poster of, Daniel Craig in my room, but maybe I should just have that image
No
up.
one will judge you, Dale. We know you have testosterone. You're doing okay. You're okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All
Huh.
right. Yeah, this is gonna time. All right, we are back for round three.
Yes. Hello.
One of these days I'll upgrade to the premium version. I really need to do that. But
Zoom sponsor Dale.
yeah, exactly. But so you wanted to lean a little bit more into that forgiveness aspect of changing your ways.
Yes, something that you said that really struck me. And I think, again, my whole goal in the YouTube channel, because I wanted to lose weight and pretend I was never fat and move on. But one of my goals is to really try and help people. And one of my obstacles as well when I first started is I would just beat myself up and say, well, I've just eaten like this and I've eaten this way and I've gotten myself into this hole for so many years. It's almost like, and that kind of was a self-worth moment where it's like, do I even deserve to keep going? Do I even deserve the success? Do I even deserve these results? And I remember having that. And again, those were those moments where those thoughts would pop into my head and I would reach for the pantry. And I didn't realize how often how quite often that happened. And I think that a lot of these things are so subconscious and we don't realize that those thoughts just create us. They really do. They supplement our environment, and that's the lifestyle we'll develop. It's based all on our thoughts and our mentality toward it. So I considered that another obstacle. When I started to gain confidence and change things, I started to look and you'll find this in your own experience too if you embark on these changes. You start to gain confidence in yourself. You realize nothing is the end of the world. And as you gain more confidence, you start to look at life in a more logical manner. And emotions are a part of our life. But really, if we want to make changes and I think that sometimes this can be easier for men than women. But I will say that all things created equal, we all have the same inclinations. So whether you're a man or a woman, or you're typically more logical or emotional, as you gain confidence and start to develop better habits, you will become a more logical creature. You will start to look at things from more of a mechanical standpoint than an emotional standpoint. So when I started to identify my triggers, I hate that word, but the catalysts for poor habits, one of them was my problem with self-worth and my just total lack of confidence and feeling like I did not deserve to do better. And when I looked at that obstacle, I remember thinking, well, my family, though, I turned it to other people. My family deserves for me to treat myself nicely. My family deserves a person who feels good about herself. My family and other people deserve that. So it became less of the Chelsea show and more of my focus is on bettering other people. And I want to tell people, you don't realize how your actions will just snowball. Like I said, sometimes we go through things and we do things and we feel like we're making absolutely no impact, but we are like that mushroom cloud in an explosion. We're taking one action and it spreads and spreads and spreads. If you can develop better habits with your eating, that's my area, with your eating and lifestyle choices. Like we said, if someone becomes obese, you're 50% more, 57% more likely to become obese. If you develop better eating habits, your children are astronomically, their chances are higher of developing natural eating patterns that are healthy and ordered. And I have two children, right? If they each had two children, that's six people that I, just because of my actions, have helped develop a better relationship with food and life. And they don't even have to do all that work, you know what I mean? Just because of the effort that I made. So if that may help somebody to when they go through that rabbit hole of self-worth and denying success to yourself because of past decisions that you made, will say, you know, those were poor habits, but today I'm making better choices because my family deserves it. Make it toward other people. One of, you know, it is better to give than to receive. You know what I mean? There is something to that. So if you turn what you're doing into a more altruistic effort, you know, you don't know the impact that you can have. And it's not just your immediate family, not just your spouse, not just your children. You know, people at work are going to start to notice that, you know, transformation and change are possible. You know, you're proving that it is possible, and they may naturally, because if they're in if you are in their immediate environment, they are more likely to develop better habits without even thinking about it subconsciously. That's before they even really realize what they're doing.
Hmm.
So the whole I don't deserve it stuff, put that out of your mind. If you feel like you don't deserve it, I think that that is something you truly do need to work on. And as you gain confidence, I think that you can heal that with yourself and
Hmm.
give yourself time and give yourself grace with that. But everybody around you deserves the best version of you. And I don't care who you are, when you are not self-confident, when you are feeling poorly about your physical appearance, those things will start to come out of your mouth, and those things will sort of ooze out of you, and they will sort of, it will, just like that mushroom cloud, sort of carry on over to all of them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So getting yourself into a better state of mind and into a better mentality will help everybody around you. And you do deserve that. You absolutely do. I used to see people and I saw that they went through great weight loss changes and they went through all these things. And it's like, I went to elementary school with them. They were brats. You know what I mean? And if they deserve success and happiness, my goodness, we all do. We're all created equal. We're all butt heads. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? We all have our moments, all of us. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's no like, you're better than this person or that person. You know what I mean? There literally is. We're all created equal. We all make choices, and you deserve the best choices for yourself. You absolutely do. And if you feel like you don't and it helps you, everybody else deserves that of you.
That is beautifully put. That is a really good way to conceptualize it, is not even thinking about it in terms of your own selfish wants. It's, you know, do you deserve it or not? Well, does your family deserve it? Yeah, your family deserves the best version of you, period. Period. And so when you're thinking it in terms of that, if you can be a better you, then you owe it to your loved ones for that reason. And you owe it to your friends. And that is, wow, that right there is the motivation right there for me, is like, yeah, do I fantasize about myself looking good in a bathing suit? Is that really enough that's gonna cause, is that enough of a catalyst to make you lose weight? Or is it that you can look to your spouse or look to your loved ones and your friends and say, you know what, you deserve a better upgraded version of me, you know, and a more grounded, a more happy, true, genuine version of me. Because when I'm just eating, I notice the gluttony, it's very selfish in a lot of ways when you think about it. If you are shortening your lifespan, that's time that you're risking potentially not walking your kids down the aisle at their wedding. You know what I mean? You owe it to them to be there for them. And you it's your duty. It is your obligation to your loved ones to eat healthily. You know, I work with so many. Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about this, how quickly things can spiral into hell, right? He talks about this all the time. Think about it. How hard is it to have everything just spiral into hell, into total chaos and hell? It's not hard at all. You know, we're hanging by a string in terms of keeping order in our lives. You know, all it's going to take for things to spiral out of hell, all I have to do is knock this boot wall over and, you know, take 10 shots of tequila and drive somewhere and go buy some cocaine from the local coke dealer and you know, lose everything. You could do it all in a day. You could lose everything in a day, even an hour,
Yeah.
you know, with some really bad choices. And but to do it right, time takes discipline, and you want to do it right. You want to live right, and you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your family as well. So that's beautifully put. I love the way to conceptualize overall well-being in those terms, because yeah, it's the people around us that we love so deeply. They owe that. You owe them that. you owe them good health, you know. I think back to, you know, like my father, he's been a chain smoker his whole life. And I remember as a kid, like in tears, you know, believing, you know, that he was going to die early. And, you know, he's still kicking, by the way. He smokes probably 2 packs a day and has been since he was 16 years old. He's almost 60 now, or maybe he just, yeah, he's about 60 now. And so, you know, I used to see that as really selfish, though my mind has changed on nicotine some recently. Is it good to smoke? No, but nicotine itself has a lot of nootropic benefits. They use it to treat Alzheimer's. There's been a lot of studies very positively reflecting that the effect of nicotine on Alzheimer's, not to mention its effects on the long haul symptoms that we might have gotten from a mysterious disease of unknown origins. I know not to go down the
Heard of
nicotine
that.
but
Yes.
I do use nicotine now. It sort of augments my coffee. I do the lozenges, and the mechanism as to why it helps recover your taste and smell after long haul symptoms of a certain mysterious disease is because your brain gets your nicotinic acetylcholine receptors in your brain get clogged up with spike protein. And those nicotinic receptors, they're actually built into your brain, which should be a clue for the creationists out there. Why did God design us with nicotinic receptors in our bodies, right? It's kind of strange, right? Why are we built to process nicotine? Those receptors, your brain likes the nicotine better than it does the spike protein. So it will release the spike, cling to the nicotine, and just my own anecdotal experience, my taste never fully recovered after I recovered from that mysterious illness. And the day I chewed one tablet of 2 milligram nicotine gum, and immediately my taste was back instantaneously. Didn't take a
Wow.
week like Dr. Artist said it would. It was instantaneous. So nicotine, I think we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater on that. I think nicotine, we've enjoyed it for millennia. Human beings have had an affinity and a relationship, you know, I'll call it a relationship with nicotine. You know, the ancient Mayans and Aztecs, they would if they were having seasonal allergies, they would they would take the tobacco leaf, grind it into a powder and snort it, and it clears them all up. And so, yeah, anyways, not to go down the nicotine rabbit hole, but actually how it relates to my boot channel is my buddy Nick at Stridewise. He actually, before he started as a boot tuber, you might say, he wrote several articles for Vice, health articles. And one of the articles he wrote was about the 4 benefits to nicotine that you probably don't know about. And one of those, most notably, was it's used to treat Alzheimer's, you know. Now he says in that article, of course, smoking is bad, but nicotine itself as a substance, when consumed safely and cleanly, can have tremendous health benefits. And so I got one in my mouth right now.
Well,
anyways,
actually, I'm very fascinated by nicotine. And before you had mentioned it, and since you've mentioned it, I've kind of looked it up on my own. But before that, I remember when that mysterious illness was super popular, they actually found a correlation between smokers and not getting the illness or not having it for a prolonged time.
yes.
And that kind of got my interest up. And then I've heard it actually protects against snake bites. So if you get bitten by a snake, actually, you are more likely to survive for a longer period of time. Don't go get bitten by a snake. I'm not advocating for that whatsoever, but you're more likely to survive for a little bit longer if you have nicotine. And I think that just everything like this should be explored. I think what happened is cigarettes are not good for you, right? Because they have hundreds of chemicals. You're inhaling them into your lungs. Obviously, cigarettes are not good for you. But that's the same as chocolate is great for you. Eating a Snickers bar every day is not good for you. You know what I mean? The chocolate is absolutely great for you. Adding the nuts and the caramel and the nougat and the sugar is not good for you. And I think that that's where they kind of lump it all together. Yeah, there's a little nicotine, something beneficial in a cigarette. And everybody's like, well, cigarettes are terrible for you. I agree, cigarettes are awful for you, but we have nicotine receptors in our brains. You know what I mean? So it's just worth exploring. And I have heard a lot of people that have had a lot of positive benefits. And I'm very excited that you mentioned, here's my carnivore plug. Low fat diets, actually, they are finding that they are contributing to early onset Alzheimer's and such like that. So animal fat, and they're still doing studies. So please don't come at me, bro. But they're finding that animal diets that are high in animal fats, there's a link between that and people who are not getting Alzheimer's. Like a perfect example, like a lot of little old ladies, and you know exactly what they look like. You picture a little old lady in your head. They, you know, they were on low fat diets their whole life. They eat like a piece of lettuce, and you know what I mean? They're like, that's gotta watch my fat, gotta watch my fat. And they have Alzheimer's very early. You know what I mean? They very quite often they've found a link between people who maintained a low fat diet for their whole life and Alzheimer's. The same with cholesterol medications, statins, don't get me started, but there's a link between statins and lowering cholesterol and Alzheimer's. You know what I mean? So animal fat and nicotine. That's what we're talking about. Animal fat and nicotine could help you live longer. And that's why I love this world. That's why I love YouTube. Because we really are kind of the news now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
People are exploring and they're not afraid to get the word out there. And some of these things are worth a try, you know? So
absolutely.
good on you.
You mean CNN isn't real news? Just kidding. I don't want to get myself in trouble.
They are, Dale. They are.
In Brian Stelter, we trust. Why you that guy over anybody else is beyond me.
The world is nuts.
Yes,
well,
it is.
The argument is, well, why would they not want us to have this information? Why would they not want us to know that nicotine is good for you and that eating copious amounts of meat isn't bad for you? You know what I mean? Why? And
exactly, this gets
I think there's money. Like that's it, money. You know what?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of motivation not to tell us what's going to help heal us and keep us off of medications and let us live for a really long. So
exactly. And the big tell for me during the whole pandemic thing was that they were publicly releasing notices. Now's a good time to quit smoking. Now's a good time to quit smoking. And I looked at that's not a conspiracy theory. You could find the article on ncbi.com or whatever, where they publish all those scientific studies. Smokers were the least hospitalized group during that entire time. Now, ask yourself why that might be. Now, nicotine does have some drawbacks. It does have some downsides. One, it's a vasoconstrictor, which is why I take this stuff, NAC, every day. Yes, I take that. That's a vasodilator, so that helps with my blood flow. So I do notice that when I'm on nicotine, I tend to my flow issues. I do have some flow issues, but when I take one of these, it just completely alleviates that. But that's really it. And like you're saying, nicotine is also an anti-venom. If you get bit by a snake, nicotine will it'll prevent that snake venom from entering into those nicotinic receptors in your brain. It could save your life for crying out loud. And I believe it has saved many people's lives. But that said, nicotine opens up your nutrient receptors through your whole body. So this ties it back to cigarettes, right? If you're smoking cigarettes and the nicotine's opening up your nutrient receptors throughout your entire body, and you're then filling those nutrient receptors with tars and other carcinogens, the rat poison compounds that are in cigarettes, all this junk. Yes, no wonder it's causing cancer. But if you take nicotine and you're also taking vitamins and eating right, then you're filling your body's nutrient receptors with good things that you actually need. Better helps you absorb things. And so that's another consideration, is like we talked about earlier, how does nature package things, right? Does nature package sugar in a candy bag? No, it does not. It packages it in a berry. It gives you that incentive to eat that berry. How does nature make tobacco? Well, it's a leaf, and I believe that if you chew the leaf or if you smoke the organic leaf itself, then it's far, far better than this synthetically industrialized produced package that man created in the form of a cigarette with all these additives. Not to mention, Dr. Artis mentioned this, nicotine actually isn't as addictive as you might think it is. Scientists got together and studied, I want to say back in the 50s and 60s, because the cigarette sales weren't as good as they were hoping it would be in the cigarette industry. They found that by adding purines to the nicotine, it makes it very much addictive. So it's the purines that they add. I think purines are found in peppers or something like that. I can't really remember, but regardless, once they added the purines, and I will say, before I went in for my work on my hair, my doctor at the time, he said, no nicotine 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after. So I actually just quit. I went cold turkey. I had been on these lozenges, probably 10 a day, 4 milligram
Mhm.
lozenges for over a year. And I just quit. I didn't have any issues. Did I miss it? Absolutely. I missed it, but I was never tempted to pick it back up. It was a conscious choice to pick it back up. And I can also say anecdotally that I haven't been sick since I've been on nicotine. My wife has been, she had a few bouts of really bad flu this past winter,
Mhm.
and I don't social distance from my wife. I'll never be told to social distance from any of my loved ones. I don't care what what's going on. I will not social distance, and I haven't gotten sick. So that's just my own anecdote. I've laid next to her while she's coughing up a storm and high fever, and I don't care. I snuggled right right up next to her. I never got
No.
sick. So if that's
Yeah.
my own anecdote, I don't know if it'll help people, but I remember years ago, just to give you an idea of big pharma, big medical, I
Mhm.
got into a debate with one of my Mormon friends. We were having dinner, and I said, "There's got to be." This is before I ever started nicotine or ever even knew there were benefits. I got into this back and forth. He was going to medical school to become a doctor, and I said, "There's got to be a benefit to nicotine because people have an affinity for it, and when people have an affinity for something, I think there's something there, you know."
Yeah.
And he kept saying, "Oh, but the risks outweigh the benefits." And I said, "But what are the benefits?" And he wouldn't even entertain it. He wouldn't even entertain
Mhm.
that there might be a benefit. He just wanted to push one narrative. And he's a very smart guy, but still his mind was just, so programmed from all the propaganda around nicotine that he just couldn't even entertain a discussion that there might be some benefit to it. You know what I mean? And so just little things along the way that they stick in my mind. And all arguments aside, I do feel that there are a lot of benefits to nicotine, especially nootropic benefits, that I think a lot of people could benefit from. And it's an anti-venom, and not to get too
Yes.
conspiratorial, but uh, certain diseases of unknown origins have venom-like characteristics, then you could drastically ameliorate your symptoms with some nicotine. I'm not a doctor, by the way. I throw out that caveat.
Yes. It's worth a Google, is what we're saying. It's worth looking into.
Look it up. I'm on it. I'm on it.
Yes.
You heard it from a friend. I'm on it. And your husband, he's also on it now too. Well,
Yeah.
how's he enjoying it? Is he using it frequently, or what are his habits like around that?
Not as frequently. I was kind of nervous that it would be because I was a former smoker. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And that kind of ties, I find that with smoking cigarettes and with chewing gum and with maybe taking lozenges, more or less a lot of the addictive properties or the habit that is developed. I don't know how many people say I quit smoking. I just miss going like this. You know what I
yeah.
mean? That's what they miss. Just like when you're trying to get rid of bad eating habits, you miss chewing, you miss the actual motion. So a lot of the addictive properties of that, it's the habit of doing it. I think he, like every once in a while, he just won't have any for a couple of days. You know what I mean? But he finds that it's beneficial when he does have it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It hasn't been like a big groundbreaking thing, but I don't see him like knocking down a dumpster and begging in the streets to make sure he has his nicotine. And that was my biggest concern.
Yeah.
But really, I think with cigarettes, the chemicals and the habits developed around that. Because
Hmm.
I remember when I was a smoker, I remembered how many cigarettes it would take to get to work. You know what I mean? Like driving, that was part of the drive. You know what I mean? Like that's how smokers think, by the way. If
Yeah.
you're a smoker and you can relate to this, you know what I mean? How many cigarettes with your morning coffee? You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think that there are a lot of habitual components to addiction, but so far
Absolutely.
it's going well, and we have not had any snake bites, so I can't, but he hasn't had a cold. He hasn't gotten sick.
Thank God for that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good. That's good. I could say
yeah,
anecdotally, knock on wood, I haven't gotten sick. I haven't. Like nothing, no colds, no
yeah,
nothing. So it's weird.
yeah,
It's weird. And I don't take it for that. I take it literally because I just enjoy it. And I enjoy the habit. I enjoy how discreet this is to carry around. I could do it on airplanes. I could do it, wherever. Whereas my dad, he's so bound by his addiction, he will not travel out of
yeah,
fear that he might go 15 minutes without a cigarette. Like
yeah,
that's where he's at. He is deep into that addiction, and there's no breaking it, and that's okay. Like and honestly, he didn't get that mysterious illness until fairly recently, and he recovered much quicker than my mom who had it. So I do attribute some of that to the nicotine, and I told him about it. I said, because he bought into a lot of the how do I say without getting canceled, a lot of the conventional remedies for that mysterious
Yeah.
illness, and so he got a lot of those medical interventions, and so that but I do believe that the nicotine had an effect on his recovery, probably more so than anything else I would suspect. But
There you go.
yeah. Anyways, talk to me. My biggest worry about carnivore is
Mhm.
coffee. Do you drink
Yep,
you drink black coffee? Okay.
I do. I absolutely, that is one thing that is my habit that's staying.
Yeah.
I drink black coffee.
Yeah.
Now with carnivore, some people do dairy. Again, I do. I will eat butter and I will sprinkle cheese on things. I try not to go too crazy because it does open up my appetite. It increases my appetite. So that's the reason why I stay off of it. But some
Mm.
people will do a splash of heavy cream or butter in their coffee. I just drink black coffee. It's fine. Some people are like, I can't drink coffee without cream. Try it. It's worth a try. It's something that you really consciously have to develop a taste for and a habit for. I happen to enjoy the taste of coffee. I enjoy having the cup of coffee in my hand. I definitely carry it around and reheat it a
Yeah.
lot during the day. But yeah, coffee's totally on the table and I've switched to decaf quite a bit. I used to
Oh,
drink coffee all day long, and I found with carnivore I have such an increase in energy, like a natural energy that I didn't know that could exist. You know what I mean? I wake up with vim and vigor and all that good stuff. So I found that with the excess coffee, I was definitely getting more jittery and uncomfortable. So I don't need coffee, however, I enjoy it. So I have a cup of regular coffee during the day, and then I just sort of drink black decaf,
oh,
but
gotcha.
coffee's definitely on the table.
Awesome. I'm relieved to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Coffee will not break a fast. Black coffee will
True.
actually not break a fast. Some people, if you're on, especially more of a spiritual fast, maybe coffee's not the best, or some people consider it a cheat, but it will not break a fast.
Hmm.
So it's definitely, if you're especially in the beginning phases of fasting, it can be a real aid. Sometimes just having a hot drink, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, can really sort of warm up your tummy and make you feel a little better and get you through and keeps you busy
Yeah,
during those fasting periods. So
exactly.
it's definitely a tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. For me, when I'm fasting, it's water, lemon water, apple cider vinegar, black coffee, but essentially no calories. A lot of people don't realize this, but in a large cold brew, a venti cold brew from Starbucks, if it's black, there's like 7 calories in that thing, this huge thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm with you. When I fast, it's a lot of water, lot of coffee. That's what really gets me through, and the nicotine helps too. But
Yes.
so, talk to me about supplements. Do you take any supplements throughout the day? And if so,
Okay. Honestly, I do not. I
mm,
definitely go on kicks with like B vitamins. Again, meat has a plethora. I don't need B vitamins, but I'll go on kicks with B vitamins. Magnesium. I
okay,
actually do. And I'm going to give you this advice, carnivore or not. If you have issues with constipation and regularity, the only thing I ever use is magnesium. So
okay,
over the counter, I think you can get 250 milligram magnesiums, $10 from Walmart, a big bottle of it. Take two of those, drink it down with plenty of water, and in a day or two, you're back to your normal cycles. Other than that, I take no supplements.
okay. Wow, wow.
Yeah.
And that's the other really surprising thing that Jordan Peterson, he got all his blood work done, and I think his doctor was expecting his cholesterol to shoot through the roof, and
Yeah.
blood clogging, blood clots, and coagulation, and nutrient deficiencies. And when the results came back after him being on carnivore for so long, they were more normal than they had ever been before. The
Yep.
levels just evened out. It's really truly miraculous what your body can do if you
Yep.
just get out of its way. Stop shoveling food down your gullet all the
Yeah.
time. Get out of its way. Let it do its thing. It's a machine. It is
Yeah.
a divinely created, designed machine filled with mechanisms to help you survive plagues, famines.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm 100% on board with just like getting out of your body's way. Let it clean itself up.
Yes.
Let it work its magic. So
Well, and Dale, I do want to touch on the blood work.
yeah,
So, I mean, when I started changing my life and doing better, I had never been sick. I was like a 30 something. I don't go to the doctor unless it's falling off. You know what I mean? I've never had a real need to go to the doctor. So pre changing my lifestyle, I don't have any blood work from
Mm.
that time. I had incredibly high blood pressure though. I
Oh yeah.
only know that because when I would go to the dentist, they take your blood pressure. It was during that illness time, and dentists had to take your blood pressure and your temperature. And I would go to the dentist and I had high blood pressure, and which is usually a good indication that other stuff's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything to compare to when I was on carnivore for, I guess, 11 months. It was in November or so. I did have blood work done because I was curious. And I'm a person, I was a former smoker. I had very poor eating habits and disordered eating. I will say that I was hard on my liver. I will say through the years that I was really hard on my liver. So I wanted to know what my cholesterol was, and I really wanted to know where my liver was. And after 11 months on carnivore, I had blood work done. And admittedly, I have high cholesterol. Most carnivores do have very high cholesterol.
Hmm.
But I will say my bad cholesterol is high. My good cholesterol is very high, and my triglycerides are 46. Okay.
Cool.
So I have high cholesterol,
Yeah.
but even my nurse practitioner, she said, with all other things considered and the fact that you're asymptomatic and you're active, and I would have no reason to put you, a healthy 30 something, I wouldn't put you on cholesterol medication. If you had symptoms or other indications, my blood pressure is perfect. My liver function is normal. You know what I mean? So I was like, through all of the years of my life where I was not very kind to my body and I was not very kind to my liver,
Mhm.
especially the fact that in 11 months of carnivore, I was at a very healthy level. That was very eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I also exercise. So my resting heart rate, I think, is 49, 40. It depends on the week, but it's like 46 to 49 beats per minute. Again, blood pressure is absolutely normal. And one thing that I haven't really discussed, but I want to talk about, through the years, I had horrible teeth issues, like from child up, just poor teeth issues. I never went to the dentist without a cavity. I've had root canals. I've definitely gotten plenty of crowns. And since I've changed my eating, I haven't had a single dental issue at
Whoa.
all. My teeth have actually whitened. I have not had a single dental issue. And I thought, well, that's kind of, I don't know if that's just because I'm not eating sugar. Maybe my teeth are better. But Jordan Peterson, actually, I saw an interview with him. He used to have gum disease, which is irreversible, by the
Hmm.
way, historically irreversible, and it's reversed now.
Yeah. Hmm.
So it had an impact. And I didn't realize both of my parents died of heart problems. So that was like a wake-up call. Your dental health has a lot to do with your heart health
Hmm.
as well. So for me, an indication that maybe my heart is doing well is that my dental health has also improved. So carnivore is beyond just losing weight. And it's really, you can clear up a lot of health issues, especially if you're where I was, like at a desperate point.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Where your health is really, really poor. My thing was, when I got to the point where I was bad, I said, if I absolutely change nothing, where will I be in 10 years? When
Yeah.
you're young, you think I'm going to live forever. I can be healthy forever. I can do everything forever. You can't. And
Right.
as you get older, it's just going to progressively go downhill.
Absolutely.
So
That's so
definitely
true.
something to consider.
Yeah, and the other thing that you're tapping in with that dental thing is, yes, it's your oral hygiene it's reflective of what's going on in the rest of your body. And part of the thing about sugar, a lot of people don't realize about diabetes, is the reason
Yeah.
why diabetics go blind. It's kind of gross, and the reason why they have a foot rot off is because of all that sugar. You develop a diabetic infection in somewhere, you're at that point, you're causing necrosis within your body. You're literally rotting certain
Mhm.
parts of your body because your immune system can't get there and remove that rot. And so what's happening is all those sugars, it's causing rot. And that's why diabetics, they go blind. That's why they get a yeast infection in their foot. It has to be amputated. Like, you're rotting while you're alive. And once again, if you get rid of those sugars and if you just get out of your body's way, it will just fix all that. Like Dr. Jason Fung says, fasting will cure type 2 diabetes. Cure it. You don't need metformin. You don't need drugs. It literally just self-regulates your body to the point to where it cleans up infection. It cleans up yeast infections. You're removing that inner rot, and it allows your body and your cells and your organs to function as normal. You get out of its way and it can heal so much. And so that's really fascinating testimony for your mouth. I've heard other things like with yeah, I'm sure carnivore prevents tooth decay and you mentioned it. What is it? The cavities
Yeah.
completely go away if you don't have sugar. So
Yeah.
it's really, really phenomenal. Yeah, it's truly miraculous what, a diet change can do for your body.
Well, literally, our cells are operating, right? Our body is constantly creating new cells, and I know we're going to time out soon, but
Oh, yeah.
you literally are what you eat. You know
Yes.
what I mean? You really have to think about that. Your body's going to function and operate based on the food and the energy. Don't
Mm,
even put any emotion into it. The energy that you're putting into your body is what your body is going to use to make you.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So you really need to think about the things that you're putting into it. And I'm not here. The one thing that I don't want to do is villainize sugar or villainize any one food group. I definitely think that sugar in excess is not good. It's not good for you. It goes into cellular respiration and mitochondria production, which leads to the telomere theories. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah,
So you really need to think about the fuel that you're feeding your body. But think one good way to look at it is because everybody's like, well, if you eat so much fat, you're going to get fat, right? Like that's how it works. That's like the mentality, and I get it. But no, the fat that I fuel myself with is what I want my body to use as fuel. You know what
yes,
I mean? So I'm feeding what I want my body to burn.
right,
So if you are feeding yourself sugar, that's what you're telling your body to operate on and
right.
burn. You know what I mean?
So
So
true. So true.
yeah.
And yeah, that's the other thing is like the sugar, yeah, that will become your single fuel source and then you'll start to panic when you don't have it. And yeah, you get those sugar panics when when
Because
it
your body really likes it.
when you're on sugar, it's a roller coaster. Whereas when you're on keto, when you're running on ketogenesis, it's like a smooth ride. It's not a roller coaster. It's not ups and downs. It's smooth. So four.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me talk your ear off.
Oh no, I love it. I live for this stuff, literally, and this is such a great outlet for me because I'm so obsessed with health, but I have no practical means of tying it in with leather work or boots or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but it is the core focus of my life. And in fact, speaking of health, I'm about to pop some NAD. This is a sirtuin activator, and sirtuins are naturally activated in your body when you're in a deep fast. It's basically your survival, it's your genetic survival pathway. Sirtuins are activated when you're in fight or flight or when you're really hungry and you need that last burst of energy to go catch that antelope so that you can eat tonight, in a hunter-gatherer sense. So, NAD.
Very good.
Mhm. Have you ever taken that before?
I have not, but I've heard of that and the NAD. I've heard a lot of people with great success with these.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. I've
The-
heard that they, are really great. I am lazy. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And again, I go on kicks. So I just
yeah.
tend to not explore those, but I'm more as I get deeper and deeper into my lifestyle and health in general. I'm
Mhm.
definitely kind of exploring biohacking and I'm really interested in longevity in general,
Yes.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I take it. But like I said, your body naturally produces it when you're in a deep fast.
Okay.
Typically, I think it's really high when you're in a 3-day fast, which I've never done before. But
Yeah.
yeah, Dr. David Sinclair, I learned about it from the Joe Rogan podcast. He had Dr. David Sinclair on, and he's the guy that actually gave us resveratrol. He introduced, the world to resveratrol, the compound in red wine that was shown to, I think, dramatically improve the survivability of rats who were consuming large amounts of really low quality fat. They were basically on a diet to kill these rats, and the rats in the control group that consumed the resveratrol, they all lived. In fact, their organs looked, or no, they eventually died, but their organs looked great on the inside compared to the rats that didn't. Their organs were like, brown and toxic and all this other stuff. So resveratrol was great, but then NAD is an even more refined version of that. So I usually take 2 a day, but I skip some days. I don't take it every day, but it's really good. It really brings me to life. I love it. So,
Yeah, I think my husband does take that.
oh, really?
I
Okay.
do. Yeah, Scott is more into supplements and exploring like nicotine, things like that. Scott's really interested in the topic.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
yes.
Very good. Well, we'll have to have him on next time.
Yes.
Definitely. But one thing I wanted to ask about your meat, and I just kind of want to get your general thoughts on this. So I subscribe to Good Ranchers, and you had some of their ground beef.
Yes.
They make a pledge that they will not make meat and deliver meat. They don't use meat derived from animals that were injected with mRNA technologies, let's say.
Yep.
Um, that's their pledge, and that's sort of my concern moving forward in this brave new world of, experimental vaccinate or experimental injections into our livestock. That is one
Yep.
thing that I'm concerned about. Is that something that enters into your purview in terms of like choosing what sorts of meat? Do you worry about where it's sourced at all?
Yes. And I vacillate. At one point we bought a half a cow, from a farm who doesn't use antibiotic, clean, fresh, massaged, grass-fed
Yeah.
beef.
Yeah.
It's definitely when I heard that they were going to start putting mRNA into the meat, I definitely take notice and that's something to keep an eye on.
Mhm.
And that kind of ties into one of the reasons people are afraid to embark on carnivore is a cost issue. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Meat is the most expensive thing that you're going to buy in the grocery store, and a lot of people kind of get nervous about that. But I
Hmm.
will say, whether you are going to Good Rancher, whether you're going to the grocery store, whether, wherever you're buying your meat, check your labels. Not all meat is injected with these things.
Hmm.
Not all meat has antibiotics and all of these put into it. You can definitely find affordable meat that doesn't have that in it. I do check labels. I do make sure that, my meat is as clean as possible. But
Yeah.
I also eat a lot of cheap meat, fatty meat. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You can go about it in an affordable way.
Yeah.
But I think in general, embarking on any diet lifestyle changes, read labels,
Yeah.
make sure you kind of know what's going into your body and into your food sources.
Definitely. Definitely. Yes. Sourcing is, of course, a concern for any food, but yeah, meat, especially in this brave new world, and this
Yes.
idea of, I'll admit, when I first heard about it, lab created meat, lab grown meat,
Yeah.
at first it sounded awesome. I'm like, oh, cool. Cows don't have to suffer and be slaughtered anymore. They could just grow the ribeye like right there on the
Mhm.
stand. But then now the more that and that was over 10 years ago that I first heard about that. But now
Yeah.
that I've sort of educated myself a little bit more, I realize, oh, that's probably just coming with just a slew of unpredictable deleterious effects for your body. Consuming a synthetically lab grown meat. It's something I'd have to see it, I'd have to taste it, I'd have to, but believe me, before anything else, I'm skeptical of it. Now, this gets into cloning and the ethics of cloning and things like that. It just a lot of it spells doom and gloom to me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, when I hear about these things, again, my brain is like basic terms. If I hear something is made in a lab,
mhm.
I automatically think chemicals. You know what I mean? If you can't, you have to produce something from nothing, it is chemicals. And just right there, I want my food to be food. I don't want it to be chemicals. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Just like when you're going to the grocery store and you're reading your labels, if you're the primary, if there are 20 ingredients in them and you can't pronounce half of them,
Yeah.
think chemicals, you know what I mean? And do I want my cells to be made up of chemicals or do I want it to be made up of food?
Right.
And that goes into the whole food industry in general. A lot of the plant life that we eat and consume is covered with chemicals and
Right.
pesticides and things of that nature.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is no good. Actually, let me pause your real. All right, excellent. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk all things health and carnivore diet with me. It's been truly a pleasure. Um,
Yeah.
yes, it's just been a wild ride of fun health topics, something that I rarely get to explore. And the way that it ties in with my channel is you have to thank the carnivores for giving us all this amazing cow skin
I
because
speak for all of us. You're welcome, Dan.
absolutely, thank you. Because
Yes.
without the food industry, we would have literally none of this leather. So
Yes.
the
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to allow me to be here and talk to you. And if you have any other questions, if you ever want to talk about it, I'll talk about it all day. I
all
will
right.
drive you crazy talking about it. So it was a really awesome outlet. And I think health is a vitally important part of our life. And if you can encourage people to really explore it and think
Yeah.
about it, if I can and help in any way to encourage people to really think about what makes us tick, what we want to live like, how we deserve
Mhm.
peace and happiness and health. Absolutely. I'd love to help encourage anyone to let you know that if you are still alive, you are still in it. It's never too late ever to start something new.
Exactly.
So,
So well said.
yeah.
So with that
Yes.
said, I will leave a link to Chelsea's YouTube channel in the description below. Go check out her channel and subscribe and follow along in her health journey because she's very humble and she's very knowledgeable. She knows what she's talking about. She's helped me along with my fasting journey. And I think, if you're gonna take on this sort of endeavor of becoming healthier, you need to surround yourself by people that are talking about it and that are in the fight every day with you. And that's what Chelsea brings to the table is she's very humble, very down to earth, and she shares, all the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. And I think we all need that when we're trying to, take on this struggle. And it is a struggle, but it leads to great abundance, in my opinion. So thanks so much again, Chelsea. And any information or links that she wants to send over, I will also include those in the description so you guys could better inform yourselves. So with that, we could shut it down. Thanks so much again. And you take care. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, Dale. God bless.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye.